Hello, I am presenting triadic anger versus dyadic anger, a look at cognitive functions with Claire Kraft, Sarah Grace Johnson, Trent Studebaker, and me, Lex Sortman. We wanted to look at anger because it is traditionally considered a emotion that has a negative valence. It's undesirable, you don't want it, but it's interesting because it predicts both high approach and high avoidance motivations. And we wanted to look specifically at triadic versus dyadic anger and what that did to cognitive functions. And dyadic anger is when you're angry because something has happened directly to you, and triadic anger is when you're angry on the behalf of someone else. So we wanted to look at the effects of anger and cognition, but specifically between the triadic and dyadic anger. Anger alters your cognitive scope. So when you get angry, your attention kind of hyper focuses on that one event. So you approach it and try to like problem solve and push through it. And very little research has been done on the difference between triadic and dyadic, which is why we wanted to look at how it affects cognition.
So we had two hypotheses before we started. The first one was that our dyadic and our triadic anger manipulations would significantly impact participants' levels of anger. And our second one was that our anger manipulation would influence people to perform better on cognitive tasks than those who weren't induced into a state of anger. Unfortunately, we had to exclude 22 participants because of a slew of different reasons, but we had to do it to make sure that our data was sound. So to start off, we administered the PANAS to get kind of a baseline of where all of our participants were at emotionally, as well as administering the STAXI, an adapted version of the STAXI. That way we can measure each participant's trait anger levels. Then we gave out the induction of anger into three separate groups: the dyadic group, the triadic group, and the control group. Each group had to do an autobiographical essay, basically. And then right after that, we administered the PANAS again to make sure that our anger induction worked. And then we gave them the DSST, which was designed to measure people's cognitive performance.
All right, and as you can see here, we had three control groups, and these are the manipulations we used. If you want, you can pause the video and look at each of the prompts. In data analysis, we noticed that overall, there was a significance between the manipulation amongst the anger groups, but in terms of manipulation overall, it was insignificant. And similarly, the one-way ANOVA for the cognitive performances were also insignificant.
So even though our manipulation as a whole ended up being insignificant, we did notice that in between the different groups, there actually was a difference in how they experienced the anger. So our triadic group, or those who were writing about viewing a wrong being committed against someone else, they actually experienced the most anger of our groups, then followed by the dyadic group and then the control group. So that was really interesting to us to see that there actually are different levels of anger within these different types of anger. So even though our manipulation was not strong enough to get significant results in terms of the amount of anger that they were feeling, we think that if we had been able to increase our sample size, perhaps we could have gotten the significant results that we wanted. Because unfortunately, due to the various reasons we had to exclude things, our sample size was pretty small. So in the future, we would love to replicate this research or have anyone replicate this research and smooth over some of those bumps that we ran into, get larger sample sizes to have at least 30 in each of the groups that we want to measure. And then also figure out some ways to fix some of the problems we ran into with technology. Because as we are trying to figure out better ways to disseminate studies over the internet or over technology, because we can't be with each other right now during COVID, we would just love to see some of those issues fixed so that less people don't finish the surveys or that they have less technical issues in doing them. But overall, we had a really good time doing this study and we learned a lot and it was really interesting. So we thank you for taking the time to listen to our presentation and hear about the research we've been doing this semester. Here are our citations for our lit review, if you would like to look at them.